The last speaker is Enrique Montesa, and I owe him a lot because he's been very helpful since I started to live in Valencia 5 years ago to do my postgraduate studies on social economy. And he's been very helpful for personally. But I really owe him a lot because he helped me a lot in a lot of things. Well, he and me tried to set up a local currency called Orue, and well, we didn't succeed, and he will tell us the lesson that we can give you. So, Enrique, the table is yours, please.
Thank you, Miguel. I'm enjoying Miguel since 7 years ago, so he's a very special friend of everybody, a friend of mine, and we have been speaking about complementary currencies and enjoying many things. So, my presentation today, I was hesitating in what I could share with you. So, my first idea was a forensic analysis of why a couple of complementary currencies were failed. Twice, I was trying first in Villarreal, which is a small village, around 50,000 inhabitants, and then second in my own town, which is Valencia, in our neighborhood, with another second currency, and in both cases we failed. And first of all, since 2010 until 2011, 2 years, I was in contact with Hank van Arkel, who is the president of STRO in Netherlands, through Bernard Littaer, and in the summer of 2010, in a course where I met the first time to Miguel, Bernard Littaer, after listening the problems we had in our economy in Castellón and in Valencia, he said, the solution is, and with his finger, he was pointing to my face, and he said the solution is C3. And C3 is a method, is a way of understanding complementary currencies between companies, between enterprises, which is developed by STRO and was implemented in Brazil, in the city of Curitiba. And Camilo, who was also another person coming from STRO, was helping us for establishing the C3 in our area. And the main point was giving to the companies, giving to the society, giving to the economy a tool in order to improve the situation. Because small and medium companies are the companies providing employment. And without companies, it's impossible to have employees, and it's impossible to have a way of living, because you are not earning money, and basic income still now is not with us. So the first failure was my impossibility to convince the Chamber of Commerce of Castellón, where I've been working for 14 years, impossible to convince them about the C3, a special complementary currency for business people. And the second was Villarreal. It was impossible to convince the shops and the restaurants and the people for using this currency. And the third failed situation was in my neighborhood. So the problem is why we failed, and that was the main idea for sharing with you why we have failed 3 times. Then we were activists, and activism without a good theory is, as this morning Daniel Jovet was explaining us, activism is quite frustrating, because if you haven't got a good theory, if you haven't got a good and common framework, and you know what you are doing, nobody can understand you. And that was my first consideration, because we were activists and we were just failing for having got the knowledge. We didn't succeed because we didn't have any theory, or not the theory, clear ideas. So, thinking about what was going on, the idea is what we have learned. Because something we have learned. We have met people, we have exchanged ideas, and then to be so the most rapid as possible, I will say we have been using this Bernard Lietaer guide, which I recommend you so much. The Community Currencies Guide is a pretty good document, 30 pages more or less, and we have been using that. So, there are 5 steps, which I recommend just to read. And from our experience, there were a couple, 2 different sides for establishing complementary currencies. On the left side, you will have the neighborhood. A neighborhood means basically people, just people without any economic activity. And on the right side, you have business, all the business network coming with factories, shops, restaurants, and what each side are asking for, the complementary currencies, are not exactly the same. In both sides, you have trust. Basically, if you have the relationship between normal people, they are asking trust. But if you have business people, they are asking you for safety. So cryptographic currencies are quite good because they are providing you safety. The problem is maybe they are not providing trust to the normal people because safety and trust are not exactly the same. So we realize that time banks or tausch rings or local exchange trading systems were working pretty well for people as a peers, peer-to-peer, citoyen to citoyen, citizen to citizen was good. In the middle, if you have shops and people, then you are talking about another thing that can be vouchers, or can be discount coupons or points or things like that. But if you go to the right, then you are talking mainly for local currencies, which are backed with official currencies, and also the money they want is mainly official and legal tender. There is a research performed nearly 50 years ago by an American person, is Everett Rogers. Maybe many of you know that. So when you are talking about something so new, like a common, community currency or complementary currency, only few early adopters are open to use it. But most of them, and most of them are nearly everybody, they don't want to know anything about it. They just are waiting to see what happens. And normally they are quite, they knew that the complementary currency will fail. So this grid for us was quite useful. You have on the top the users, and you have on files, you have the issuers. So time banks or tausch rings are in the middle. The users and the issuers are the same people. It's C2C. But the C3 that Bernard Lietaer were saying that was good for us was B2B, business to business. And VIA in Switzerland, or Sardex in Sardinia, are B2B. So B2B and C2B are complementary currencies, but are far away from any point of view. So if you are talking about Yanis Varoufakis and the supposed parallel currency that he was preparing for Greece 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I don't know if it was like that, then they are talking about parallel currencies, and parallel currencies are issued by the administration. Argentina, with the LECOP and Patacons, they were issuing, the 17 provinces in Argentina, they were providing a type of currency that was good for paying the officials, and they had G to C. C was the official working in the administration, G is the government, and then government were paying also to the providers, G to B. So when you are designing a complementary currency, it matters. It's so important in which square are you placed. If you are placed in C to C, it's nothing to do with G to C or nothing to do with B to B. Are different types of complementary currencies. And this is why we have a confusion when we talk about community currencies, when we talk about local currencies, we talk about complementary currencies. All of them are not legal tender, are complementary currencies. That I think was a Bernard Littaer approach for that. But other people, like Eloisa Primavera, is saying social currency. So what have all such a currencies in common? Money, and if we think about currencies, complementary currencies as a money is credit. And the credit can be many different types of credit. You can have the credit coming from the state and is backed by taxation, but you can have credit, which is banking credit, but you can have a mutual credit between normal people, or you can have business credit. So as long as you have so many different types of credit, the way you are managing such a different types of credits are changing. And the technology you are using for just conducting this kind of accountancy, because if it's credit, we are talking about accounting. And accounting means having a ledger and then writing all the movements. And the movements is clear. You can use a pen and paper, or you can use electronic accountancy, or whatever you like. And nowadays, I would say the most beautiful way of having an accounting is cryptographic currency. Okay, so I'm Spanish, and although I was not born during the civil war that we have in Spain. Okay, 5 minutes. We have during 1936 and 1939 more than 2,000 currencies, which is a lot. And everybody reminds how many currencies were available in Spain. At first, we had the official currency, that was the Second Republic, peseta, was official, the legal tender, but the militaries, they were establishing a second peseta. And the second peseta was an occupation currency. The same as German people brought into Poland, brought into Belgium, into Netherlands, and into France, and into everywhere. This is a technology which is quite good. It's just going into a country and then saying to everybody they must accept such a currency, even if it's for domination. In a way, I would say euro for Greek people is an occupation currency. Occupation, which is quite clear. They are suffering so much because they haven't got a sovereign currency. So we had in Spain a couple of pesetas. The national peseta that was from fascist side, and the Republican peseta that was on the other side. But besides the official pesetas, in many villages and many provinces, there was a shortage of pesetas of any kind. So they were issuing another type of currencies that were backed with merchandises, or even for taxes paying in the small village. So in this map, you will have on the right side, you have what everybody knows as a legal tender. And the legal tender could be the official one, that was the Republican peseta. On the bottom, you have the occupation legal tender is by force, like the Caliphate, like in Syria. They have issued in 2012, I believe, or maybe 2013, they have the Daesh has his occupation currency. So if you are not accepting it, then your head is out. So if you go to the complementary currencies, the point is, where are the complementary currencies? On the bottom, okay, 2 minutes. On the bottom, you have what is the counterfeit currencies, but also all the fraudulent vouchers and coupons and everything. So we are mainly on the green square, and the green square is plenty of different types of complementary currencies, and this is a good point to discuss. So the Pantone provides you with many colors. So I'm using this Pantone just to say that we are talking always about credit. All credit has a technological approach. You can use LEDs coming from South Africa. You can use Ethereum. You can use anything. You can use cycles. Everything is good. So on the left side, you have, is red by the way, I don't know why, but you have time banks, local exchange trading system, and you have everything. And on the right, you have legal tender. But if parallel currencies issued by a state, and maybe in the future, because the euro system is not working, doesn't work, by the way, maybe in the future we will keep euro, but why not? If each region or each state can have its own currency, parallel currency, why not? So the time is finished. Thank you, Miguel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for Enrique for your presentation. So we have some. Okay. So yep. So of course there are two questions.
Hi, my name is Numa. Thank you for your presentation. Are you saying that B2B and B2C and C2C and C2B scheme would not be feasible? Have you analyzed any currencies or any scheme working or trying to implement a relationship or exchanges between business and people with only one currency? And do you think it would be possible to implement a multi-currency system within the same neighborhood, let's say, to allow these exchanges between businesses and people and businesses?
Okay. Miguel, let me, because my English is not good enough, and I prefer just answering and then later to the other one. Okay? So technology, for me, is something which is aside to the type of credit you are trying to manage. So the technology could be metallurgic, and we have in Spain, in the south of Spain, we have a complementary currency that was established in 1989 and is made of silver. And the name is Axarco. And the small piece of Axarco is Axarquillo. So you can use silver. Why not? You can use paper, and you can use plastic, and you can use anything you want. And doesn't matter if we are talking about the official legal tender currency, or we are talking about time banks. The use of electronic solutions is much better for everybody, because you can have the exact exchange. If you are paying to a library, a bookshop, if you are paying maybe 9, but with a note of a complementary currency of 20, they will be crazy if they are giving back not only the book, but also 11 euros. So in Villarreal, they were saying, we recommend you using the electronic technology, because for us is more comfortable. We don't want to have, in our case, complementary currencies aside the official currency. This is one. And then the second question you were asking for is related with not only with currency, but with the legal framework. So it's not the type of money you are using, but the type of activity you are performing. So when people are just exchanging favors or services, there is not an habituality. I think this is the English word. They are not living off that. Maybe they are painting, they are doing things, and this is not an economic activity. For taxation and for regulation, then this is aside, and doesn't matter if they are getting money from complementary currencies or legal tender. So how can you use complementary currency for everybody? The way French people and German people and English people are using their currencies, which are local currencies, is like a voucher, and the voucher is very well regulated. So in France, it's compared to the ticket restaurant. Okay.
Thank you. You mentioned the unfortunate civil war, but that did give rise to Mondragon, which is extremely interesting in my view in its isolation. Now, I don't know how many currencies that employed. I assume they will have had their own anyway. But something else interesting about that is it illustrates a point I was making earlier about the importance of a meta system, because the Caja Laboral wasn't so much about banking, as I understand it, as about bringing together the essential elements of an economy to make them work together, with the money being almost incidental as a way of keeping track of activities. But the development function lay in that bank, so it had a metasystemic function, to call it. Now, my own organization is trying to emulate that, if possible. But maybe we can talk about that later. I just wanted to bring up one more thing. I was pleased that you brought up Everett Rogers' adoption curve, because one of the characteristics which I haven't yet seen appear in any of typologies is whether a particular exchange mechanism favors early adopters. Another one is whether it is actually possible to steal or worth stealing, which I think touches upon a point raised by the previous speaker to do with the most deprived, the homeless and so on, for which having something which is essentially tied to their biometrics, I think, may be the solution. But again, there's a lot of very fertile ground here.
I agree. The only thing I think I can add to what you said is in Spain, if you go to a numismatic shop and you're asking for the emergency currencies that we had in the Civil War, they're offering minimum 1,500. And there were mainly vouchers, and the vouchers were issued by bars and restaurants, by mill factories, and they are just backing the vouchers with merchandises, which is all right. But in any case, you can see that even such a vouchers and such a emergency currencies are based upon trust, upon safety, and are credit. So.
Okay, do you have some more questions, or shall we go? Are you already hungry? Okay, so thank you, Enric, for your presentation, and all the other speakers, Ross, Stephen, and Eduardo also. So right now we will go for lunch, and beware that although we are here in Spain, this time we have only 1 hour for lunch. This is unusual in the country. So at 2:30 p.m. we'll begin another session, the first afternoon session. So don't expect like first dish, second dish, and coffee. Beware of the short lunch.
Thank you, Miguel. Can someone take a picture?